Hey, so I'm standing on the summit of Mount Defiance. This is a really epic hike that you can do pretty close to Seattle. And it's a really clear day. There's almost no clouds. It's a little bit of haze, but it's really not that bad. All the clouds are basically this blanket of fog in the corridor. But above that, the whole view opens up. So I kind of wanted to give a little tour. I'm gonna start with, this is the east facing view. This is probably my favorite part of the view because you see all these little lakes down there. That one is Mason Lake. So you actually loop around that when you're coming up the mountain. You see that, and then you get to the top and you see it from above. There's like chipmunks and birds everywhere right now. Below that is Little Mason Lake. This big one is Lake Kula Kula. In between here, I know Island Lake and Rainbow Lake, which are two smaller lakes, are in there. I know Pratt Lake is, yeah, you can see the tail end of Pratt Lake around there. So a ton of alpine lakes that you can see. This ridge is Bandera. There's Little Bandera, and then there's the actual summit, which is only a little bit higher. You can branch off of this trail, and you can do that. Sorry, that's hard to see because it's so bright outside. My phone screen is really dark. This mountain right there is Granite Mountain. I've climbed that. This is Silver Peak, which is actually has a silver gray color. Looking around this way, there is High Box Mountain. That is Mount Stewart, which is 9,400 feet tall. It's super dramatic and epic. That right there is Caleton Peak, and that is Chair Peak. In between these two is Malacca Lake, which I've been to. I can't name all of these, but I know like Chickaman Peak, Chimney Rock is around there. And then looking this way, you can see behind this, there's a big white mountain. That is Glacier Peak. This is into the Glacier Peak Wilderness, the North Cascades. And right over there is Mount Baker. Spinning around this way, this ridge right here, this is Putrid Pete's Peak, or P3, as it's sometimes called. You can summit that, and there's a boot path along the ridge where you can traverse over to Mount Defiance and make it like a two-peak day. This one, I believe, is Preacher Mountain. I actually think one of these two is Preacher Mountain. And then these kind of like crags, the spires over there, is Russian Butte. This whole ridge that's up the Middle Fork Valley, so I see Mount Tenerife and Bessemer is around here. I actually think it's that one. And then spinning around, this is the south-facing view. You get a really cool view of these ones. This spire, which is like very iconic looking, this is McClellan Butte. This is Mount Kent, and then there's two other spires. That is the Duke and Duchess of Kent. And then obviously Rainier. And next to it, you can see Mount Adams. You can't see St. Helens because it's blocked by Rainier's fat ass, but you get a 4-volcano view. So that's pretty epic in my books. Yeah, here's that ridge on Putrid Pete's Peak. Looks pretty intense to cross that. And here you can see this final push to the summit really sucks. It's like a borderline scramble at some parts. Just bring lots of fluid, bring electrolytes, and it's totally worth it though. Totally worth it. While I am looking at this view, I wanted to just talk about this trail and let you guys know what to expect if you're going to be doing this yourself. It's very similar to a hike I did in this area last year. It was like basically a coin flip as to which one I wanted to do. It was Granite Mountain, which is that one. Very similar total elevation. I think that one's like 50 feet higher, and very similar trail stats and a similar kind of view. You get to see, obviously it's right there, so you see the same kind of stuff I'm seeing right now. I think you have the potential for a 4-volcano view up there as well. You also see some alpine lakes, which is always cool. My suggestion, if you're able to do both, just do both. Like, these are both really beautiful hikes. They are amazing training hikes because it's a lot of elevation. And they're both conveniently really close to Seattle. They're easily accessible. The main advantage that Granite Mountain has is it has a lookout, an old fire lookout. You can't actually go up there, but it does look really cool in pictures, and I just love seeing fire lookouts. And you also get to walk through some really beautiful meadows. Mount Defiance has some cool meadows even in this early season, but with Granite Mountain, you get these beautiful streams and these like giant granite boulders everywhere, which looks really picturesque. With Defiance, at least for most of the way up, it's a slightly more gradual climb. And if you want to see a lot of alpine lakes, this is probably the better one to do. You also pass by Mason Lake, and you pass by some cool streams and waterfalls on the way up. I can imagine that this trailhead, the Ira Spring Trailhead, because it branches out into multiple trails, I imagine it gets very busy and it is a big parking lot. But when I got here, there was no one. I haven't seen anyone so far. There was no one camping at the lake or anything. Probably because it's Cinco de Mayo and it's the middle of the week, but whatever. There's also a lot of snow. I think people wouldn't expect a trail with this elevation to be doable this early in the season, but we've been having a really fast snow melt. So I got the whole trail to myself. But yeah, Mount Defiance, I believe, is only about 10 miles east out of North Bend. There's 3.5 miles of gravel road, but it's a really easy gravel road. There's not a lot of potholes. There's some sections here and there with potholes, but any vehicle can get through really easily. With the cool thing with Defiance, you get some really cool peekaboo views on the way up that just keep getting better and better. I will say the final push to the summit is no joke. It's really, really steep, and there's a lot of sun exposure. It is actually hotter than I expected it to be today, so it really sucked getting up, but it's absolutely worth it for this view. At least from what I've seen, definitely seems like a better view than Bandera over there, because you get this crazy top-down view of all the lakes and stuff. It is 400 feet more climbing, but if you can push up there, it's definitely worth it. Oh yeah, the trail is pretty wide, pretty evenly graded. It's pretty easy to follow. It was actually good that I downloaded maps because there's a lot of snow on one little part. You reach a point where you can either turn off, go over to Bandera over there, or go to Mason Lake. You just take the Mason Lake trail, and it's pretty easy to follow from there. First, like 1.5 miles are very, very gentle grade. You don't really feel like you're climbing at all, but you are. And then it starts to pick up, and then it pretty much stays like a consistent, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but pretty consistent, medium trail grade the whole way up, and then gets really steep in the last part. There's a ton of animals. I actually saw an elk on the way here, just in the middle of the road, which is pretty crazy. And there's chipmunks everywhere. There's pikas. There's pheasants, multiple pheasants that I saw. And that final like open section, even if part of the trail isn't that steep at all, you're walking on a pretty narrow trail on some really steep slopes. It looks kind of scary, but you're basically walking on the side of the mountain where you get into the meadows. And if you kick a rock down, it's just like thousands of feet of that rock falling. But yeah, I would say if you want to get the lookout and see probably cooler meadows, I would go with Granite Mountain. If you want to see more alpine lakes, I would go with Defiance. Both amazing training hikes. They're both about the same distance apart from Seattle. So yeah. Also, if you want a slightly shorter hike that's more consistently steep, I would go with Granite Mountain. It's about 1.5, maybe even 2 miles shorter, mostly because the first 1.5 miles of Defiance is relatively flat. But both are going to get you a good workout because they're both about the same elevation gain numbers. But yeah, that cloud inversion was really crazy. I had been checking the forecast for about 4 days in advance, and every single time it said it was going to be completely sunny the whole day, no clouds whatsoever. And I start driving, and before I even get to I-90, I just see this blanket of clouds, and it's totally obscuring all the mountains. I can barely see anything that isn't a couple hundred feet above me. And I start hiking, and there's just this really spooky kind of enchanting effect where everything is covered in mist. There's like spots on the way up that are supposed to be viewpoints, but I can't see anything. It's just all gray. Then at some point I go above the clouds and everything opens up. I see what I wanted to see, which was that golden sunlight hitting the sides of the mountains. And because of just how dense that layer of clouds was, especially in the blue twilight, it really did look like a sea, and like the mountains were islands that were floating on water. It's early May, early in the season, and we still got the slopes of the mountains are still lined with these yellow flowers, and I could tell just seeing the slopes going up that these are going to be totally lit up in June, July.